What is up, lads and lassies? It's your boy, Lug of the Mun, back with a new video. This is a little bit different than my typical content. Normally I just post flow-free speedruns or some one-off videos I've done in the past. But I am actually a huge Fire Emblem fan. Specifically, Path of Radiance is probably my favorite game in the series. I've played it and beaten it many times. Um, Something that's a little bit different is that I actually have almost exclusively played Maniac mode as opposed to the English hard mode. And some differences between that, if you aren't familiar with it, Maniac mode is the Japanese exclusive difficulty. It just makes it so that the enemies are stronger, there's more enemies, and starting at chapter 18, all the enemies are promoted. So it makes for a pretty good challenge, in my opinion. I've beaten this game on Maniac mode many times. It's probably been like 5 or 6. I've been in as an Iron Man challenge a couple times. I've also failed it as an Iron Man challenge many times. I think I've failed in Final Chapter like 3 times in Iron Man challenges, which is a little bit sad, but made for fun playthroughs anyway. In terms of the criteria for this tier list, I know most people kind of refer to efficiency. Honestly, it's pretty difficult to play Maniac mode efficiently just because of how strong and bulky the enemies are. Like you can, but I mean, I don't know. So I think the criteria for this tier list is basically just kind of on my own experience with Maniac mode. Um, I also like to talk about bonus experience a little bit. Most people, or I guess maybe not most, but some people play this game where they kind of just will funnel all their BXP into one unit to make a Juggernaut. I think that's a great way to play the game. I've done it a couple times, but I usually prefer to train up at least a couple units and use more than just one personally. But that is something to keep in mind. So kind of with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started. So I kind of have the characters ordered in availability, like kind of when they appear in the game, but I might bounce around a little bit. So starting off with, I'm just going to go and plop Titania right on top of S tier. This is not even a contest. Titania joins you in Chapter 1 with just absolutely monstrous base stats for the time. I think it's like 12 strength and 14 speed, I believe. So she one rounds like everything for the first few chapters, and she remains excellent because she's got really good growth rates. She remains excellent through chapter 16 or so. And on Maniac mode, she is subject to getting RNG screwed. Her stats can fall a little short, especially like her strength can be a little middling. Her bulk can sometimes not be enough. So like once you get into like the late game, she can kind of fall off. But in Path of Radiance, there's also the Night Ward that can patch up her speed. So Titania can serve you well for almost the entire game, depending on how she levels up. But regardless of her level ups, she is almost essential for the beginning part of the game. I actually have beaten the early game of Maniac mode without Titania. I tried it once just for fun. I killed her off in chapter 1, and I was actually able to killed her and Boyd off in chapter 1, and just for fun. And so I literally only had Ike and Oscar, and I was able to win. Luckily, I actually had a really blessed Oscar that run. But anyway, so you can beat the first chapters without Titania, but it's really hard, and she's very good. Mounted, Kanto, uses axes, like just great unit. I'm also gonna go ahead and put Oscar in S tier. He also joins you in chapter 1. His base stats are like okay. He doubles some of the enemies in chapter 1, a couple of them in chapter 2. His growths are okay. I think it's like 45 strength, 45 speed, something around there. So he can end up RNG screwed because like you want both of his strength and speed to level up well, and sometimes they don't. But similar with Titania, there is the Night Ward in this game, so even if your Oscar gets a little bit screwed, the Night Ward can patch him up. And the other important thing with him is that he has an Earth support, specifically with Ike, which grows really fast. And so the cool thing about that is that Earth support at A rank gives you plus 30 avoid, which I'm pretty sure they can have their A support. I forget the exact numbers. I think it's like by chapter 15 or 16 or something like that. It's like ridiculous. And also Oscar also supports with Kieran, who has wind and Earth, so he gets an extra like if you A rank with Ike and then B rank with Oscar, sorry, B rank with Kieran with Oscar, I think Oscar can end up with like an extra like 45 avoid, so he just becomes unhittable. You can give him soul in late game if you want to. On promotion, I typically like giving him bows actually because bows on a mounted unit is actually really useful late game for dealing with wyverns. But all of this combined, like his early game utility, his earth support, access to bows being mounted, also just his pretty solid stats in general. I'd say he definitely belongs in S tier. Ike, I'm gonna go and put an A tier. He'll end up being at around the bottom of A tier. So the thing with Ike is, everyone likes to talk about, oh my gosh, he gets the Ragnar in the late game. He's so good, and that is true. But you don't get the Ragnar until chapter 27. So what does Ike do before that? So as already mentioned, he has an Earth support with Oscar, which makes him very, very dodgy. He's also forced deployed in every map, which not that you have to use him, but he's one of your best candidates for fighting Ashnard late in the game. He's one of your only candidates actually, so it makes your life a lot easier if you train up your Ike. There's also just a lot of uncontested EXP for him in the early stages because there's so many axe fighters. I will say that Ike can get royally screwed over by his growths. They're all around 50%, specifically like his strength and speed are like right around 50%. So I have had some truly horrendous Ikes in my playthroughs. I think I had an Ike one time that he didn't level strength until level like 14 or something. It was atrocious. But even with that, he still came back late game and was just fine. So, he's got early game utility. He's good against the axe fighters. I like to give him the Seraph robe and from chapter 1 to make him bulkier because it just makes it a lot easier to train him and to use him. He's pretty useful up until maybe kind of once you get out of early game, like once you start hitting like chapter 10 or 11 or so, he stops being as useful. Usually for me, he's also pretty high level by that point, so I kind of stopped wanting to get him the XP. And then for chapters like 15, 16, 17, he's basically useless. But then he promotes in chapter 18, and if you got in the support with Oscar, he's super dodgy. You can get him a bunch of EXP in chapter 18 and chapter 19 if you want to. You can give him Ether, and all of a sudden he's doing a lot of damage. He's really bulky. He's a good frontline unit. I had one playthrough where I gave him the Night Ring and the boots, and so I would just have him run around with my cavalry, and it was just great. It was super fun. So I think Ike, and also his late game performance is just amazing with the Ragnar. It's so good, makes him bulky, 1-tier range, it's great. I think he belongs in A tier. Boyd, I'm gonna go ahead and put in B tier. Boyd starts in a bit of a speed hole because I think it's 7 base speed. No, 7 base strength. I think it's the 6 base speed, something like that. So he's losing 3 speed from his Iron Axe, which is pretty bad. But he has a really good strength growth and a pretty decent speed growth. So if you start giving him some levels, he can start leveling up, start getting speed. He can start to snowball pretty well. He's actually one of the few characters in late game Path of Radiance who can one round even some of the bulkiest enemies with a forged silver axe just because of his high strength cap, which is really nice. The thing with Boyd though is that he is just a little bit too frail because there's so many enemies in Maniac mode. He doesn't have very good defensive stats. He does have really high HP, which helps, so that can be nice. But once you get into like later game Path of Radiance, he's not like an all-out juggernaut. He doesn't have enough avoid to dodge tank, and he doesn't have enough bulk to just like face tank things. But he is a powerhouse for sure, and he has early game utility and a lot of uncontested EXP there. If you want to dump a bunch of bonus EXP into him, once you get access to it, you certainly can. I think there's better candidates for that personally, but Boyd will serve you just fine if you train him. I'm gonna go ahead and put Riss in B tier, probably above Boyd. So Riss is your first staff user you get. You're gonna want a lot of healing in Maniac mode. You need it a lot, especially in late game. Having Physic is so useful. And Riss has a massive magic stat. Like holy crap, I think he caps magic like uncontested every time, which is just super nice. It's probably better to just early promote him. If you're using him, he'll probably. I think in my last playthrough I did, I think he was somewhere in the 13, 14, 15 range when I promoted him. So you can have him promoted by Serenus Forest just fine, like comfortably. If you want to level him to 20 and you're playing slower, you can do that. But honestly, the only stat he really needs is magic, and he has a really good growth. So just promote him whenever you want to. His combat post promotion doesn't really matter. Like he gets access to light magic, but his speed is really bad and his strength's really bad, so he gets doubled by everything and dies. So it's really just using for his staff utility, and that's about it. Soren, I'm gonna go and put an A tier above Ike. There is something to mention, which is the thunder or like the thunder crit glitch. You can also do it with slim swords and slim lances and stuff. It's basically any weapons that have 5 crit on them. Um, you can subtract the crit twice to give it -1, which overflows to 255 crit. So you can get thunder tomes with 100% crit, which is super strong. Um, there's also a vantage scroll in this game, so if you want, you can give the vantage scroll to Soren and like just give him a force thunder tome. He can just kill literally everything. Um, that is objectively the strongest thing to do. It's not necessarily the most fun. But even if you don't do that, even if you're not wanting to use the Force Thunder Tome, which I totally understand, I think it's fun to use, but it's not required. Even if you're not using that, Soren has really high magic. He has like okay speed, um, especially in the late game. Or even just like throughout the game. There's Armor Knights with a lot of defense, but like middling resistance. A lot of enemies just in general have middling resistance. So having a really strong mage can make your life a whole lot easier. Soren also gets stabs post promotion, and he has a really high magic stat, kind of similar to Riss. But he also has early game utility. He's kind of trash in early game, to be honest. But I've found that it's not too difficult to get him EXP if you're trying. Like in his joining chapter, I think I usually get into level 2 in his joining chapter, and then like level 3 or 4 in the next chapter. Like, because the next chapter after he joins is a defense chapter, so it's pretty easy to give him kills that are left alive on units. And then like his stab utility post promotion is great. If he levels enough speed, he can just do a ton of damage with magic. I think Soren's pretty good. Gatry, let me refer to my other tier list here. I'm gonna go ahead and put Gatry right above Boyd. The reason for this might look a little weird. I might change this later. So Gatry, he joins you in chapter 3, I think, and you have him for some of the early game maps. In chapter 3, he's pretty good. In chapter 4, I think it's chapter 4 where you get Soren. Gatry's very good there because he's super bulky. And Titania's running off and killing everything while Gatry's kind of protecting, Riss and Soren and Ike. Gatry has really good defense. He has really bad speed and really bad movement, which kind of sucks. But he's super good in the early game, just super useful for all those chapters. And you get him back in chapter 13. At that point, his speed is really bad. He's really weak to mages, but there is the Night Ward. So if you want to fix his speed, it will get fixed over time eventually. The other thing to mention with Gatry is because of his defense is so high, and because there's so many enemies in this game, he late game can end up with 30 defense capped as a general in the late game, which is super useful. Normally I wouldn't, it's not normally good to mention, like late game performance or capped stats, but in Maniac mode, you will almost always have units who are capping or level, and so having like your caps actually really matter in the late game. And Gatry being able to cap defense makes him so bulky and super useful. I did an Iron Man one time, and Gatry saved my butt because all my units died, and he was just able to face tank everything. So for that reason, I think Gatry belongs in B tier. His movement is definitely a penalty, but I think his high defense and his high strength makes up for it. So Shannon, I'm gonna go ahead and put in the top of D tier for the time being. I might move him up to C tier. I could see that happening just because of his early game utility. So the thing with Shannon, he has the same exact availability as Gatry in the early game. He's there for a couple maps. He's really useful for dealing chip damage. He can one round some enemies with a steel bow sometimes. But then he leaves, and he doesn't come back until chapter 18. And when he comes back, dude, he freaking sucks. He is horrible. He is so bad. I've tried to use him before just for fun, and you have to spoon feed this guy kills. And his stats are like not even that good. Like he has really good growths, but he's already promoted, and he only has 19 levels to gain. And growths are not 100%. And so, like, even with average stats, like, he just doesn't end up being that great. He's an archer, so he's 2 range locked in an enemy phase heavy game. So he's just bad, man. I use him in the early game and then never use him again. Mia, I'm actually gonna go ahead and throw an F tier. I actually really like Mia, not because she's cute or whatever, but just because I think she's fun to use. I think it was maybe my second playthrough I did of this game. I used Mia just for fun. and she was actually really fun to use, but I would not recommend it. She's sword locked, which really sucks. She's foot locked, which really sucks. She's really frail, which really sucks, and she has really bad strength, which really sucks. So she just is bad. It's very unfortunate. Um, because like her void can get to be pretty decent in the late game, I've found, but because she has really good speed and decent luck, but she doesn't have any like viable supports in my opinion. I actually don't remember who I think she supports Ileana and Gatry maybe. I don't actually remember, but I don't remember because I haven't used her that much because she's not worth using. Like even if you train her, like her strength is bad, she can't ever one round things in the late game, and even if she has really good avoid, she's she's liable to getting two shot by a lot of things like even late in the game. It's just not really worth using her. Ileana, I'm going to go ahead and put right above Riss in B tier. You get Ileana in chapter, is it 8 or chapter 9? It's right after Gatry and Shannon leave. I think it's chapter, it might be chapter 9. I actually can't remember now, but it doesn't really matter. Ileana, she's a mage. She's pretty decent. Again, it depends on if like using a Thunder Forge or not. Kind of depends on how good she is. I think she's still pretty serviceable without it. She's kind of slow. Like her speed's kind of bad, but she can double some slower enemies like Armor Knights, which is usually what you want mages for anyway. Even if she doesn't double, she still does pretty decent damage. She's got a good magic growth, good skill, good luck. Super accurate. All the fun stuff. She gets stays post promotion. So I'm putting her above Riss just because she's got combat utility and staff utility, and his Riss only has staff utility. So she also does have a decent strength growth, but because her speed's so bad, like it doesn't like if you don't get weighed down by your Thundertone, but you've got bad speed, like it doesn't really help you in the long run. So I think Ileana she's perfectly serviceable, but I'll put her in B tier. Rolf, F tier, trash. Comes in and she joins you in chapter. It's in chapter 8 when Ileana joins because Rolf joins you in chapter 9. Yes, and he is. Oh my gosh, he's so bad. Like he's level 1 with worse base stats than characters who join in chapter 1. He joins in chapter 9, and he's bow locked. He's foot locked. His growths aren't even that good. So like even if you train him, he's not gonna be that strong, and you have to just spend so much effort to train this guy. At least he has the Rolf's bow, I guess, to like, which is pretty actually a really strong personal weapon. I have used him before in Maniac mode. He ended up being super defense blast, which was kind of funny. But yeah, he's really bad. Don't use him. I'm gonna go ahead and put Mist top of B tier. There will be some gaps between Mist and Ileana later on. So Mist is you also get her in Chapter 9 along with Rolf. She's level 1, which really sucks. She also has E rank and staves, but you actually gain staff rank in this game really quickly. And you get a ward staff in. I think you get a ward staff in Chapter 10. Yeah, like in the next chapter you get it. So you can just heal a few times with her, and then she gets the ward staff. And you can just kind of spam that. Um, I've had some playthroughs where I've gotten her to. She usually gets to level 10 around chapter 16 or so, maybe chapter 17. And when she promotes, which you should 1000% use a master seal on her because you are not going to level to level 20. I'm sorry. But when she promotes, she gets a mount, which is super useful. Her stats are because you're early promoting her. Her stats aren't going to be that great. So like her physic range isn't that great, but she makes up for it by having a mount. And having a mount in this game is just great. Super great utility. She can rescue. She can heal. She should not fight, despite what people will tell you about the Sonic Sword. It is not worth doing. It's funny, but don't do it. Marcia or Marcia, whatever you want to pronounce it as, I'm gonna put her top of A tier. Some people would argue that she's supposed to be an S tier. I could totally see that. This could be tainted because I just never get good Marcias. I feel like she just always gets stat screwed. Like for some reason, she just always gets speed screwed for me. I don't know how that even happens, but yeah. But she flies. She joins me in chapter 9. She has a pretty good candidate for bonus EXP if you want to. Um, I've found that she's a little bit frail in the later game, and also like her strength cap is kind of low. So even with like max forges, she sometimes can't one round things in late game. But being a fire is super nice. She's got decent growth rates. She will turn out fine. She's a good candidate for a lot of the stat boosters you get in the mid game if you want to use those on her. I kind of prefer to give those to Jill, who I'll talk about later. But no, Marcia, she's a flyer. She will serve you just fine if you use her. Leith, however I want to pronounce it. I'm going to go and put her on the B tier above Ileana. Leith joined, or I don't know, I'm just going to say Leith. Leith joins you in chapter 10, which is the prison chapter. If you want to play that chapter normally, she's really good there. If you want to stealth it, she's also useful because she's got really high movement, so she can carry people around if you want her to. Her stats are just really, really solid for a few chapters. She's really, really good up until about chapter 15 or 16 or so, because then she stops doubling things, but she's really, really strong for those few chapters. She's one-running so many enemies, and she's so tanky. She's really good at dealing chip damage, too, to like some of the promoted enemies. But then, especially like once everything promotes, she kind of just falls off. She gains EXP really slowly, so she has really good growth rates, but just isn't enough to save her, I don't think. At least from the late game, but she's really, really good when you have her. Mordecai, I'm going to put right above Leith. Similar stuff with Leith, super high movement as a laguz. I guess I didn't even talk about that, like the transform gauge. Leith transforms right at the start of the battle, which is really useful, so she's really, really good for the first few turns. Mordecai does not transform immediately, which is kind of a blow, but he does have the smite skill, which is super useful. And when he finally does transform, holy crap, he has so much strength. He is super duper strong. Like he can one-round Armanets in chapter 10 and chapter 11. His speed really holds him back because he stops doubling pretty quickly, but he's so tanky, so it's kind of nice. And having smite is so useful, especially with your mounted. Mordecai is big enough that he can smite your mounted units and just give them so much movement, which is super nice. In chapter 13, he can smite Ike to get to Ashnard on turn 1, which is super useful. You can also just shove him 3 times, so having one unit to do it is really nice. So kind of similar to Leith, his growth rates are really, really strong, but because he's a laguz, he gets the XP really slow, and so he kind of really falls off once the enemies start promoting. But there's a span of about 4, 5, 6 chapters where he's just really, really solid. Volk, I'm going to go and put him at the bottom of B tier. So Volk, he joins you in chapter 10. He's really useful on that map, especially if you're going to stealth it to get the bonus experience. He's essential for that. And also Volk is the only person in the game other than Soth who can steal physic stabs off of priests. And like I've said before, physic is really, really important in this game. And the cool thing about Volk is that you do not need to give this man a single drop of EXP to get all the physic stabs. When I first played this game, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to train my Volk. I would spend a bunch of EXP on him, and I would promote him, and he'd be super strong. But the thing with Volk is that his stats do not matter at all. He has really good growth rates, but I had a playthrough one time where Volk, he capped his strength, his skill, and his speed before promotion, but he was still trash. And the reason is because his durability sucks, he's locked to one range, and his weapons have really bad might. So you should not be doing combat with this guy. You should use him for his thief utility alone. He does cost you 50 gold per use, but you get a lot of gold in this game, so it shouldn't matter unless you're Mangs or something. But yeah, he can steal all the physics stats you need to at base, which is just super, super useful. And also, yeah, he unlocks all the chests and stuff. Because you can unlock chests in chapter 13. But you also get stealth by that point, so they kind of share the thief utility, but yeah, he can steal the physics stats, which I think is really good. Next up is Nephany. I'm going to go ahead and put Nephany in D tier. I think, yeah, I'll put her below Shannon for the time being. So Nephany joins you in chapter 11. She has really shaky bases. Actually, I think I might move her above Shannon. I think that could be okay. I'll move her above Shannon for now. So she's got really shaky bases. She's got pretty decent growths. She has Wrath, which is funny. You probably shouldn't be relying on Wrath unless you. Yeah, you probably just shouldn't rely on it. It's kind of nice. But yeah. She also has E rank and lances at first, which is really bad because she can't even do steel lances. So even if you dump a bunch of EXP into her, like a bunch of bonus experience, she still can't use steel lances and doesn't do very much damage, which is kind of lame. She can use the Night Ward to get really strong. You can do it. Nephany can become a good unit if you train her. And you can give her Luna in the late game, I guess, if you want to. You'd have to take off Wrath to do it, but the thing is, she joins and she just doesn't do much damage. She's kind of frail. Her HP growth is pretty bad, so even in the late game, she unless she gets a lot of defense, she's still kind of liable to just being bad. She's also, I don't know, she just joins and she just, I feel like I'm just spitballing here, but you get the point. She joins bad bases, bad lance rank. Like you can train her, but it's not optimal. So Braum, I'm also gonna put in D tier, probably below Shannon. So you might be like, oh, why is Gatry so high while Braum is so low? Well, Gatry has early game utility and has better stats than Braum does. So Braum can theoretically do all the same things that Gatry can do in the late game with the super high defense and just tanking a bunch of enemies, but he has worse luck. I think maybe. Don't quote me on that. Anyway, but he just he joins. He's weak. He gets doubled by everything. Like you can give him the Night Ward if you want to, but he's just kind of a pain in the butt to train, and he has low movement. Like at least when Gatry joins, he's got he has uncontested EXP in the early game, so he can have like higher defense and be kind of useful when he comes back. But Braum is just, you can use him, but why? Why would you? All right, Kieran, I'm gonna go ahead and move to the top of A tier underneath Marsha. So Kieran and Oscar are basically the same unit. The only difference is that Oscar has an Earth support and earlier join time, but and basically every other way they're kind of interchangeable. So, but there are pretty big differences, which is why Oscar's gonna be S tier. So Kieran joins you in chapter 11. He has really strong bases. He uses axes. He's a little bit inaccurate when he first joins, but that kind of gets fixed over time. Post promotion, I like to give him bows along with Oscar because just having bows and being mounted gives you a lot of utility. It's also really good for shooting down wyverns in the late game, as I've said before. So, there's also Night Ward. He's mounted. Like, Kieran's just super solid all around. Z-Hark, I'm going to go ahead and put in a C tier. He joins you also in Chapter 11. He's, like, okay. He has an Earth support, but he doesn't really have that many good support partners. He supports with Braum, I think, and with... Does he support... Oh, I think he supports Ileana as well, yeah. Which is a pretty slow support. So he has a lot of speed when he first joins. His strength is like decent enough. He's pretty frail though. I think it's like 25 HP and 7 defense maybe. So he gets 2-shot by a lot of enemies. You can give him a lot of EXP in the next chapter, in chapter 12. You give him the Laguz guard and like just have him fight a bunch of ravens, which is kind of nice. But at the end of the day, you end up with a sword master who, like, he's got good speed. He'll double things. It is important to mention that um, in chapter 17 and 18, when things start promoting, if you promote Z-Hark pretty early, he can beat his speed cap and start gaining speed again because enemies start having like 18, 19, 20 speed pretty quickly, and so he can still double things. But his strength is never going to be amazing, and again, like, he's locked to one range. He can't retaliate on like all the javelins and hand axes in the late game, so like you can train him, he'll turn out okay, but he'll never be amazing. Soth, I'm going to go and put in C tier as well. Everything I said about Volk, like in terms of the thief utility, like getting chests and doors, Soth does for free, but he cannot steal physics stabs. So he's also super duper frail. Like Volk can actually like take a hit if you need him to, at least for like the first half of the game. But Soth just his combat stats are just pathetic. He's horribly weak. I like to use him if there's no physics stabs on the map, but I need like thief utility, I'll use him instead of Volk just to save the 50 gold. But because of this physics stabs, Volk is going to be higher. All right, Jill, not even a contest, going in S tier right behind Titania. So Jill joins you in chapter 12. She joins you level 8, and she's pretty underleveled with like kind of middling base stats. But the thing with Jill is that she is probably the best candidate for all of the stat boosters in this game, at least a majority of them. She flies, and she's already like, her growths are pretty decent, and she's low level, so you can give her a lot of bonus experience. So I think that Jill, she's not like, she's honestly really not that great at base. Like, her stats just are not that great, but she just makes really good use of the resources that you have, like the bonus experience and the stat boosters. And she gets access post promotion. She flies, and she's also bulky. Like, she's bulky, man. So like, I've had some Jills that have been super duper RNG screwed, and she still turns out pretty decent. But if you get a good Jill, like, she will absolutely carry your late game. Like, she can just fly in. You give her a pure water, give her a ward, and she can absorb the siege tomes. She can kill those people like in chapter I think it's chapter 20. Is that defending Talrega? Maybe. Yeah, I think it's chapter 20. She's so good in that map because she can just fly over and kill the siege tome mages. She can sit and kill all those wyverns. she can take on she can just take on like entire halves of maps, entire halves of maps by herself. If you invest into her, it is an investment project, but she's like the best investment project in this game, and you will not regret doing it. Astrid, I'm gonna go ahead and put in A tier, right above Ike. So Astrid joins you in chapter 13. She's level 1, which like you're like, oh my gosh, why am I putting a level 1 unit so high? But she's mounted, she has bows, and she has Paragon. And she comes with a Night Ward. Although you can give that to anybody, so it's not like her thing. She doesn't really get credit for having it in her inventory. But the thing with it is that Astrid will always, always, always cap speed. Like if your Astrid doesn't cap speed, like you're doing something wrong. And even though she's level 1, because of Paragon and because of bows, like bows are accurate. And so like all she has to do is chip things and she gets like 30 EXP, 40 EXP. So she's really easy to get kills to. She levels up really quickly. She gets a lot of speed. She starts doubling things. And then you can promote her and she gets axes. The one thing with Astrid, I guess a couple things. Her strength can be kind of suspect sometimes, but because she doubles, she can still do pretty good damage, and like getting axes post promotion can like help her strength a lot because she can get forged axes. Her durability can also be kind of bad. I think she's got like noticeably kind of bad HP, so she levels up kind of bad. She can end up with like lower HP, which makes her a little bit frail. But she has really high speed and good luck, so she becomes really dodgy in the late game. I believe that she has Wind Affinity and supports with Gatry. So if you want to support them together, she can get like a little bit more avoid from that. I mean, it's not a lot, but it can kind of help a little bit. But yeah, but she's mounted basically with Ashnard. Like she's mounted and she's super easy to use, and you know, just having bows in the late game is just really nice. At least if you're mounted. Makalov, I'm going to go ahead and put right above Zehark in C tier. Makalov joins you in chapter 14 with pretty bad base stats, honestly. Like they're pretty bad. I think it's what like 9 strength, 10 speed. His like I think it's like 7 skill. So he's mounted. You have the Night Ward. You can save him if you want to. You do have to slow down for it a lot, and he's gonna be really inaccurate because of his low skill and I think his luck's pretty bad too. Well, is it? I should look these things up before I start talking on my butt. Let me look up his base stats real quick. Makalov base stats. He has 8 luck, which is like okay, I guess. So I should have known that beforehand, but that's okay. So anyway, but the thing with Makalov is like if you train him, he'll turn out okay. But like at this point, you already have Oscar and Kieran and Astrid, and like you can never have too many cavalry in this game. But it's just he's just meh. Like you'll train him, he'll turn out fine. But he's just his base stats, his start is really bad. But he'll turn out okay. He's actually really tanky. He's got his pretty good defense and pretty good HP, so he's actually pretty tanky. Tormod, I'm going to go ahead and put into. Hold on one sec. Let me get my other tier list back up so I can refer to it. I'm going to go ahead and put him also in C tier, but I'm going to put him above Makalov and Zehark. So Tormod joins you in chapter 16. He has really bad base stats, which kind of stinks. He's also a really low level. Tormod's one of my like favorite characters in this game to train. I don't know what it is about him, just his face. I just like using him. He also has celerity, which gives him +2 movement, which is super nice. It's not that hard to give him EXP because he's a mage and attacks resistance. And he gets EXP pretty quickly because he's low level. So if you want to, you can just give him a little bit of EXP and then early promote him, and you just get a free staff bot, which is nice if you need it. If you train him, his growths are like decent enough that like he'll actually turn out pretty strong. Like he'll be able to do good magic damage and double things late game. His strength is pretty good. So late game he can use like meteor and stuff, which is super fun. Like if you want to train him, I really like training him. I think it's worth it if you don't have like other magic units. But yeah, that's kind of my opinions on Tormod. I think I might be a little bit biased with this guy, but I just like him too much. All right, next up is Morim, or however you pronounce it, Morime or something. I don't know. I'm gonna put him. This might be kind of a dumb placement, but I have never really used Morim that much. Like you get him in chapter 16. He's pretty good in that map. Like he can one round like the generics or some of the generics. And he's okay in chapter 17, I guess. But then chapter 18 comes along and everything promotes, and Morim stops doubling. like unless you give it like because you want to use the demi band because he doesn't transform immediately. So all of a sudden you have this one range locked unit that doesn't do much damage and doesn't double things. Like he's pretty bulky. He does have pretty good strength, but like his claw doesn't have very much might. He doesn't have very many good support partners, and he's also just like super high level, so he doesn't have like much like he gets super low EXP. So I don't know. I've never really used Worm that much. I know like Mangs thinks that Worm's super good because he uses him in like all his Path of Radiance playthroughs, but I've never really gotten the thing from Worm. Like he's good for 16 to 17, and then I kind of stopped using him. I kind of stopped using him after that. I've never used this guy long term. Next up is Stefan. So Stefan is actually a unit that I've never used. I really want to try him out, but his luck is just so bad, and so I'm just always afraid he's gonna get crit by stuff. But he has really strong base stats. Like has like 25 speed and 19 strength. Like he will double everything for a long time, and he actually has like pretty decent growths too. Like he's super high level, but like he'll get a little bit of XP, and so eventually like he will double everything for the whole game, which is super nice. He also comes with Astra for free, which is cool. His strength is like 19 strength is really good at base, but the farther you get into the game and like everything starts promoting, having used like other units, like 19 strength just doesn't really cut it. He does have a good strength growth, but like the Swordmaster strength cap is kind of bad. So sometimes Astra can just waste a bunch of weapon uses for you. He's also pretty frail. Like he has I think like 38 HP and maybe 11 or 12 defense, which just is not that much. It's serviceable right when you get him. Again, like I'm just speaking from numbers. I haven't like actually used this guy, which maybe maybe he could be higher, a little bit lower. I think this is about right, but I just haven't used him. But he seems like he'd be pretty decent. But like, his low luck is a little bit scary, and his durability becomes an increasing problem the later you get into the game. Okay, now we've got Devdon. Dude, I love this guy, but he's so bad. He's so bad. You get him in chapter 16. The latest playthrough I did of this game is the first time I've ever tried using this guy. I actually rigged like a bunch of his level ups to give him really good stats, and he ended up being just super fun to use in the late game. I gave him Luna, and he just was killing everything. It was awesome. But dude, he is. If he just had like just a little bit more base stats or like a slightly lower base level, I think he could be like actually kind of decent. But he just like he joins you at what level? I think it's level 4. It might be level 6. I think it's level 4 in chapter 16 as a halberdier, and he has base stats that are about equal to Titania's base stats from chapter 1, and he's in chapter 16, which is just like what the heck? What is this unit? If you use the Night Ward, he can get speed. Like he actually has really solid growth. So he has like I think it's like a 60% strength growth, and like with the Night Ward, he gets really good speed. So if you want to use him, you totally can. But yeah, like you can train him in chapter 17, but then everything promotes and he doesn't double for like forever. Like even when I was rigging his growth rates, he just didn't double for such a long time, which just sucks. A cool thing about him is that he does have really high luck, which is cool. It means he's like never gonna get crit by stuff because later in Path of Radiance, there's a lot of thunder, like specifically Elf Thunder sages that have a ton of crit, which is really spooky, and he can fight these no problem, which is super cool. Okay, Janaf. I will put Janaf. Do I have him in? Let me check my other tier list. I actually have him in C tier. Is that right? Yeah, I think I have him above Soth. So this might be a little bit low for Janaf. He's someone that I really haven't used very much. Like I used him a little bit. I've used him like a little bit in like right when he comes, but yeah, he's got like serviceable base stats. He transforms immediately, which is super nice. He flies, but he's also laguz, so he just like laguz limitations really suck. So he's pretty decent for like 18, 19, maybe 20. But again, like he's one range locked. He gets really bad EXP. His claw, his talon or claw or beak, whatever, has really bad might. So like he's decent right when you get him, but he falls off pretty quickly. Racing, easy S tier. You could argue that Racing could honestly be top of S tier if you really wanted to, or like even just higher up in S tier, maybe even A tier. It depends on how highly you value utility, like dancer utility. But the thing with Racing is that he's a laguz, and so when he transforms, he can sing for 4 people at once. And in a game with Super Canto, that is super duper duper strong. Like if you plan your turns out, look at all these units in S and A tier. Like you've got Titania, Jill, Oscar, Marcia, Kieran, and Astrid, who all have mounted utility. So these guys can all attack and then cancel to the right spot. Racing can sing for all of them, and then they can do it again. And it's just super crazy strong. Just yeah, dancer utility. He flies, so he's actually like pretty. It's easy to position him well. He has really high resistance, so like if you wanted to take a siege tome, I guess he can. You shouldn't do that though. But like if you need to, I guess he can. But yeah, this guy should never see in combat. But he's just so good for dancer utility. Olkey, oh dude, I think I tried using this guy once and it was just bad. Like he joins you super late. He has really strong growth rates, but just his speed is so bad. Like his base speed sucks. He doesn't transform immediately. And like he doesn't even have that many levels to gain. He does have the special skill that gives him like a little bit more avoid or something, but like it doesn't really. It's much better in Radiant Dawn than it is in this game. So Olgi just he's bad. Like he doesn't double anything for forever. He actually gets doubled by a lot of things, and like he's laguz. He's one range locked. His weapon sucks, and he's just bad. Don't use this guy. Tanith, I'm gonna go ahead and put an A tier. Right. I have her above or behind Soren. I have her right behind. I could see her going a little bit higher. I think this is fine for now. Um, the thing with Tanith is she joins you. She's got pretty solid base stats. Her strength's a little bit low at 16. Like it's serviceable, but it could be better. She's 24 speed, so she doubles like everything. Her durability is like passable. She's got like decent res. But she has the reinforce skill, which can get you 6 free Pegasus Knights, which in late game Path of Radiance with all the siege tomes is just invaluable. Like you can order those guys around with Ike, and they can soak up damage for you. The two Falcon Knights you get are super duper strong, so you can send that like in chapter. Is it? I think it's chapter 21 without a king. That's that like humongous indoor castle map. Like you can send those guys on ahead. They can absorb all the sleep stabs. They can kill the siege tomes there. They're just the extra Pegasus Knights are just so useful. And Tanith is pretty solid herself. She has an Earth support with Oscar actually. So if you didn't support Ike and Oscar together for whatever reason, Tanith and Oscar can support and they can become super dodgy together, which is super nice. She's got solid base stats. Her strength will be pretty. It'll start to show later in the game pretty quickly that she just doesn't do that much damage. But the reinforced skill alone just puts her up here. Khalil, I'm gonna go and put her in C tier right above Stefan. So Khalil joins you. I forget when exactly she joins. I think it's in chapter. I want to say it's in chapter 20 that you get her in the base preps. Khalil's like okay. Like she has the thing with Khalil is that she has really high weapon ranks. So she can use all the siege tomes at base. She unfortunately has knives and not staves, which is kind of lame. But her base stats are workable. She has I think like 18 or 19 base speed, which isn't enough to double a lot of things. She can double like maybe some of the slower halberdiers, and she definitely doubles the generals, which is really nice. If you train her, which I have before, she's one of your only candidates that can get to use the Rex Bolt late in the game, which is just it is a monstrously strong tome. And she also has a pretty high strength base. I think it's like 8 or something. So she actually doesn't lose that much speed from it. So she can use it in like the super late game, like in the final chapter to like kill stuff. I don't know. maybe that doesn't matter. But the biggest thing with Khalil is just her speed tome utility is just super nice. And like she's a mage. I mean, like she's perfectly serviceable. Torneo, I'm gonna put him about top of C tier. He joins you in chapter 21 without a king. He's level I think like level 13 or 14 or something. His base stats are pretty solid. He has really high HP, decent strength, decent defense, kind of middling speed and skill and stuff. But the thing with Torneo is that he has resolve for free, and resolve is super duper good. It doubles your strength, skill, and speed if you're below half HP. And because he has a lot of HP and is pretty bulky, it's not too hard to get him to resolve range. And if you give him the Night Ward and level him up a couple times, he can he can do work. Um, it is some investment you have to put into him, but all you have to do is give him the Night Ward and some EXP, and he does just fine. And like this late in the game, your bonus EXP is not a super needed resource anymore, at least in my experience. So if you want to, you can like save all your late game bonus experience for this guy. You can give him the Night Ward and give him some speed, give him some levels, and then in and like the later maps like Clash and like the final chapter, he can just tank entire sides of the map by himself in one round things. So Tyranio is pretty cool. Renolf, I'm gonna go and put in C tier right below Tyranio. He joins you in chapter. He joins you in the Pitfall chapter, the big bridge chapter. I think it's either chapter 23 or 24. I can't remember. The thing with Renolf, so he is a laguz. But I actually really like this guy. He's actually one of my favorite units. I don't know why, but he's just so fun to use. He supports with Ike, so if you need an extra, like, if you want more Earth support for Ike, if for some reason your character's died or something, or if you just need an extra unit to support with Ike, he has wind support, so you can get Ike 20% avoid at A rank, which is super nice. Renolf is super duper bulky. He has like 50 HP and like 20 defense at base, and so he has 9 movement. So he's just really nice to just like run around and just tank things. Like his damage output sucks. Like he doesn't double things. He also doesn't transform immediately, so you have to give him the demi band. But other than that, like I just like this guy. Like he comes to you ready to go. He's pretty bulky. If you give him some EXP, like he can level up all right. But like at base, he's just perfectly serviceable. He's not like good at combat. Like he doesn't do that much damage, but like he's not horrible. And like nothing one rounds on Maniac mode late game, so like it's actually not too bad. Like sometimes having an extra chip damage dealer who's bulky can be really useful. So Har, I have never like actually used, but like I'm gonna go and put him in C tier behind Janov. So Har, he joins you in the same chapter that Renolf joins you. Like he has a flyer. He does have like decent weapon ranks. Like he can use the Brave Axe at base. He actually comes with the Brave Axe. But he's just a little bit too. He's just too slow. Um, he's not going to double anything, especially like on Maniac when he doesn't double anything, and like his defense, like his stats are just not crazy high. I'm gonna look up real quick what is actually don't know his base stats off the top of my head. Are Radiance. Let's see what you got, bro. All right. Okay. Yeah. 21 strength, 20 defense. Like he has worse base stats than Tyranio, and Tyranio joined a couple chapters earlier. So like and 17 speed is pretty bad. Like he's gonna get doubled by some of the paladins late game. So like you can use him. He flies like, and for that alone, he's like okay, but he's not gonna be a very good combat unit, unfortunately. Next up is Bastion. So Bastion, he's bad. I'm gonna put him in bottom of D tier. So Bastion joins you. He has good weapon ranks, so like he can use siege storms at base, but actually his base magic is not that great. Like I think he has worse base magic and speed than Khalil, who joined you like 4 or 5 chapters earlier, which is just so stupid. Is his like he's slow, he's frail, he just dies. Like I used him in my latest playthrough, and like I rigged his level ups and gave him the Vantage Scroll and the Force Undertone. He like killed a bunch of stuff in endgame, which was super funny. But because it's freaking Bastion killing stuff, but that is not typical gameplay. Like this guy sucks. Don't use him. Like he's if you need like a siege tome bot, you can use him for that, but don't use him for anything else. Oh man, dude, Lucia. Oh my gosh. Ugh, F tier, trash. She was what like I think she has like what 15 strength at base. She's terrible. She does not do any damage. She's super frail. She's sword locked, foot locked. Like, what is the point of this unit? Why is she so bad? She's just terrible. She does have an earth support, but like I think it's with Bastion or something. She's just bad. You get a free silver sword. You get a free laguz guard from her. Other than that, don't use her. She's bad. Joffrey, I'm gonna go ahead and put right above Janov in C tier. Joffrey joins you in chapter 25, I believe. Yes, in chapter 25, which is actually not a great first map for him because knights and paladins and stuff have limited movement in that chapter, which is kind of lame. But he joins you. He has like serviceable base stats, I guess. He's got Paragon, so you can give him the Night Ward. He can level up super easily. He's got bows, which is really nice. He's not going to double at base, the Maniac mode stat inflation. But he like you go on the Night Ward, he can level up and like do okay. Like he's perfectly serviceable. He's not a world beater, but like you get him for free and he's fine. He does what you need him to do. Largo, I'm gonna go ahead and put in bottom of D tier right in front of Bastion. So Largo also joins you in chapter 25. You get him in the base preps, I think, and he Largo's really funny. I used him in my latest playthrough and rigged his level ups because my last playthrough I had to like rig everyone's level ups just for fun. It was a good time. He does have really strong growth rates and he has really high strength, which is super cool. So like Boyd, because his strength cap is so high, like he can actually like one round like Wyvern Lords and like game with like a forged silver axe, which is super funny. But like his base speed is like not that great, so he needs a little bit of help to start doubling things. And like at this point in the game, like you don't always want to have training project anymore. Like you kind of just want to be using your Dragonauts and just beat the game. He also is just really frail. Like he has really bad defense and resistance. He has a lot of HP, but he takes so much damage from like everything. So like you can use this guy if you really want to. Like he can be okay filler for late game, I guess, if you need something. But other than that, he's probably not worth using. All right, and finally we have Alencia. Not finally. There's still three people left. Alencia, I'm gonna go ahead and put her in bottom of C tier in front of South. You get her in chapter 26, which is Clash. She's force deployed, which is kind of a bummer because if she dies, you get a game over, which sucks. Um, like Alicia, she's fine. Like, does she have? I think she has airing staffs at base. Maybe does she? I think she does actually. Let me look that up real quick. I should know these things off the top of my head, but I don't. Yeah, she actually does have airing stabs. She also has the immediate, but it like really sucks in this game. It's really good in Radiant Dawn, but really bad in this game. Um, she flies and has stabs, which is like she's the only character in the game that has that. But her magic is only 12, so like it's not like her physic range kind of sucks, and like I don't know, like you can use her like she's okay filler. She can like restore people who get put to sleep in like chapter 27 and 28 and stuff. But yeah, like she's fine. She comes in, she flies, she heals. That's all she does. So Anna, oh, let me check. Go back to this real quick. Anna, I'm gonna go ahead and put in D tier right above Devdon. You get her if Ike does not beat the Black Knight, which I actually don't think I've ever had Ike beat the Black Knight in Maniac mode. I just haven't gotten the RNG right for it. So Anna, like, she joins you, and like, she's just bad. Like, she's one of the only characters who can damage Ashnard in a late game, which like can be kind of okay, I guess, but her stats are just terrible. I know that like the 0% growths run gives Anna the resolve skill and the wrath skill and has her 1v1 Ashnard. So like she can do things. Like she's a dragon, she's really bulky. I've actually found her to be because she's forced to play an endgame. So I found that she can actually be like kind of useful there, because she can just like face tank stuff if she needs to. But you know, you have her for 2 chapters and she's pretty bad. So I'm just gonna put her here. Nasir, like I said, I don't think I've ever actually gotten Nasir before, just because I haven't beaten the Black Knight. But Nasir, I'm gonna put him bottom of C tier. Like kind of the same story as Anna, but his base stats were really strong. I think he also has. Does he start with Resolve? I think that might be right. Let me check that real quick. I forget what he has. Nasir. Sorry, I'm looking this up. Let me see. Oh, he has Boon and Nihil, so he actually does not have. He does not have Resolve, but similar to Enna, if you want to, because he can damage the Black Knight, like you can give him a Wrath and Resolve, and he can do like okay, I guess. But yeah, like again, like you only have him for 2 chapters. He's really bulky, but yeah, he's fine. He can do things, I guess. So anyway, so that's all the units. That's my tier list. I feel pretty decent about it. If you have any concerns or questions or discussions you want to have with me, I'd be more than willing to discuss it with you in the comment section. Um, Otherwise, this is a tier list for, again, one of my favorite games in the series. Um, yeah, I look forward to hearing what people have to say about it. So, this was Lug of the Month signing off. See you guys later.